So, one of our most successful people at the company, Lydia, you'll find me actually doing a TEDx talk about her, actually came to Pearl Lemon and worked for us unpaid, ethically and legally at the beginning because she used her academic credit to actually advance her education so that she didn't have to take as many exams, spend as many time ultimately at university or rather at college in the US. At the time, I wasn't even aware that such programs existed, but what it meant was that Pearl Lemon at that point didn't need to pay at that time for Lydia. Now that was really, really interesting. And if you're watching, what I want to communicate to you that there are, whether you choose to take them up or not, programs that exist internationally, nationally, that allow candidates to come and work at your company and there's no cost to the employer. There's actually entire companies that are set up to do this. And we actually, over time, through simple Google searches, simple online searches, have engaged with several of them. So if you're watching this and you're in HR or you're looking for ultimately a team to come in and develop, and of course, there needs to be some level of exchange value because if people come in and they fill out spreadsheets every day, they're not going to be for long at your company. So of course, implicitly within that, there does need to be some level of exchange value. But what I want to share with you today is the reality that you can get great people at no cost to the company, ethically, legally, and I want to walk you through some of the ways that you can do it. So first of all, it's just about knowing that that's possible. People make the assumption that, well, that's unethical and impossible, when in fact, it's ethical and possible because otherwise I wouldn't be making a video about this right now. So, with that in mind, we have seen interns that you can get in exchange for academic credit. So first of all, bucket number one, let's go back a step. Bucket number one, research it. And it's really important the way that you ask questions, whether you do it through AI or you do it through Google. So rather than, for example, asking, can interns work and be unpaid? It's better to ask, where can I ethically or where can I find interns that are unpaid? And then actually you start discovering that there's entire programs that are set up. I've just visited the University of Penn, UPenn. They're an internationally recognized university. And on their website, they say, oh, we have candidates that can exchange academic credit for work experience. And some of these employers don't need to pay you. That's on the university website of one of the best universities by reputation in the United States. People talk about UPenn. So that should underline to you the quality of candidates you can find that are looking for meaningful work in exchange for academic credit. Okay. So it's incredible when you think about it on those terms. So first of all, I just want to open up your mind to the reality that it does exist and it can exist because what happens is that we assume on the basis of the majority of people who say, okay, well, no, that's not how it works, or students who say, okay, no, I'm not interested in that, as an implication that therefore it's an improper approach. But you always need to go where the fish don't flow because that's where you find a lot of the goodness and a lot of the magic. And we have multiple people within our company who've risen significantly quickly within the company, have started on programs that involved academic credit. And one of them, in fact, is actually going to be joining us soon as the incoming sales director, which you two will both be aware of. She originally joined through that program, and now she comes back. So we do then go on to offer paid positions for all of these members of the team, of course, ultimately, because otherwise it just wouldn't make sense. But in any event, it exists, and you should look it up, and you should aggressively look it up. And I hope that UPenn example makes a lot of sense. And to confirm that, you could use Google search operators and search academic credit, college, university, and then just start seeing the stream of university sites that come up talking about it. Okay. So once you are aware of it, then it just becomes a matter of, depending upon your approach, of building up an ecosystem of providers who you can build relationships with. So much like if you are in HR, or much like if you're a business owner and you've ever been at a university where they have the university stands at an employee fair where companies come in and tout the prospects of a career with their company, it's relationship building. So we can then go ahead and build similar relationships with particular universities to build long-lasting referrals, okay? And there's even, because some companies don't have the infrastructure, so you might say, that sounds like a lot of work. There's companies that actually are set up to provide you with academic interns. So now we move on to a second interesting conversation. So these companies that work on providing ultimately employers such as you potentially, or HR teams such as you, with interns at potentially your company, how do they make money? Because if the interns ultimately are doing in exchange for academic credit, the companies also at times get paid by the universities. They get paid by the colleges. And that's how these interns are placed, or that's how these students are placed. So always keep this in mind, and knowing this is extremely powerful, because then you can begin to identify companies that offer these academic exchange programs that collaborate with universities at scale, or you can individually go to the top universities and seek out a process to be able to build this out. So one such example is that you're able to, via the University of London portal, which has then the network of multiple universities across London. It was something that we used to do at Pearl and I've actually forgot. Again, one of the biggest sidebar learnings that I've had is to restart things that we used to do, because we took the academic credit approach for the first 18 months of the business, and then somehow we forgot for 3 years. And then I realized that we weren't using it anymore, even though one of the most successful people in the company was found through such a platform. So the important point here is build these relationships, make the phone calls, figure out how it works, do the email outreach, and systematically build these relationships, because they'll pay dividends down the line if that's a path you're interested in pursuing. And if you can, of course, build the necessary exchange value, because there's criteria that you need to fulfill within academic credit programs. There's things that need to be stipulated. And if you've got the wherewithal, so the wherewithal in this context is practically an internal training and development program of some degree, where the people that come in can, of course, learn, because that's where the exchange value, an exchange of marketing or business actual classes as part of a semester, they get those skills or acquire those skills during your placement at your company. So this is the first bucket that you should be thinking about. And you can approach that bucket, the academic credit bucket, by approaching universities directly or liaising with third-party companies, all accessible via literally aggressively searching online. And as we know, there are also platforms that aggregate universities across the world through which you can use, or you can find candidates at scale. So as we know, our team currently, and this may be subject to change, Handshake is a platform that allows you to do that. So then, quick second tip, you could, of course, search aggressively for Handshake alternatives, look at forums, look at platforms online, and build up your ecosystem of alternative providers that do similar things. Because it's always an alternative that's in the weeds and hiding in places. So this is bucket number one when it comes to how to ethically find people to work for you that are technically not paid by you, that not paid by you. I don't like to use the word unpaid because it implies unfair, but in this context, there's a clear value exchange. This is bucket number one. Now, bucket number two, there are also companies that will place candidates in your business and they will pay for them to work for you. They will pay for them to work for you, which is mind-blowing if you think about it, but it exists because we have it. Now, how does that work? There are companies that skill up students and skill up untrained people, and then as a consequence of them being skilled up, part of, and the way that these companies operate is that they typically will get some level of governmental funding. So it's important to understand the process. Governments across the world have funding for different initiatives to train people in different disciplines. Now, that budget is allocated to companies who can provide such training programs. As part of that value exchange, these programs oftentimes guarantee or offer as part of their packages placements for students. Now, in order to unlock additional levels of budget, these companies need to place the students or place the students on their program. And these companies build in enough profit to be able to pay for a certain number of students to be placed at companies for a set period of time because it allows them to unlock more government budget. So let me repeat that again. There are companies who will pay your actual next employee or next intern to work at your company. So then it's a matter of find those companies and multiply those relationships, build ongoing long-term relations with long-term relationships with such companies. So we're a digital and remote company, and we work, for example, practically speaking, we do a series of web development. So we then have partnered with a development bootcamp who take untrained people and train them in a series of development skills. So for my HR team who are watching, multiply the number of relationships we have with web development bootcamps. It's quite logical. Multiply not just the number, we talk about depth within one country. So the relationship that we have is with a company in the UK, but also breadth. It will not just be the UK that has such programs. There'll be programs that are across the board internationally. In this way, you are able to get a really low risk inflow of candidates who can come in and potentially be the next amazing star at your company at no cost to your company. And if you plumb the depths of these two areas, academic credit, paid programs that are run by the government, you can get abundance of candidates coming in. And of course, and let's call this bucket number 3, it's worth then investigating where you, and in the case of Pearl Lemon, we do that because you could just go to pearllemonplacements.com. But what about providing the training programs yourself? What about getting direct access to the government funding yourself? If you're a company that trains people up and gives them a new set of skills, and what's interesting about this is that with the way the world is moving, given the pace at which the world is moving, if you're in any of the, let's call them frontier industries, an example would be anything digital, of course, anything AI, training and learning new skills inherently has to be part of your work to be able to keep up with what's happening. So then, logically, you're training people because it's a requirement of the role to learn new skills, to learn new platforms, to learn new processes. So why couldn't you then potentially go direct to source? Go to the government, find out what the criteria is. How does that work? Can it be something that your company could implement? So if you work intensively on these strategies, it could entirely change the nature of the way that you recruit. And this is how you can ethically get unpaid interns, placement candidates to come and add a huge amount of value to your company.